Okay, what do we got? What do we got? All right, morning traders. Or if you're not in Melbourne or Sydney, welcome. Hope you're doing well. Um, I'll get up and running. It looks like there'll be people coming in soon, so let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. Why don't you jump on and we'll just continue on. So just want to go over, obviously, the major markets and moves from last night. Just go over a couple of things. We saw the Dow sell-off. G'day, Pete. We saw the Dow sell-off. That started in the European session, so it was actually trading that on the short side. G'day, Jason. So it did pretty well. It came out of that congestion zone on the Dow, and then you saw the DAX open up okay, and then about 4 o'clock the futures are open. They were sort of bouncing around, and then lo and behold, just after the market opened at 5, which is when I think the DAX opens, the index and maybe the FTSE as well. I'm not clear on the FTSE times, but around the same time, then they started to sell off and sort of spike lower, consolidated a bit, and took out a few more people on the downside. So it was an interesting little trade. It just dropped the Dow. You can see just dropped. You're talking about it dropped about 100, and then bang, another 100 or so in all quick succession. So that continued on into the the US session. We saw some further weakness. Markets sort of consolidated a bit into the 11:30 open on the US, and then bang, it was over again from there. So sold off. Dow ended up down to 700 or so. It's 710. You got that right? Yeah, 700 so points. Yeah, it was a bit brutal. So is that going to be the first of a major corrections that we're going to see, or was this just a clean pullback? We saw the linked markets that we're talking about. They all did react as well. We've got the Aussie dollar sold off quite hard. Unfortunately, we were looking for a short on that. It just didn't get anything off. It did sort of crack the level I was looking for, and I was just looking for a minor pullback. But two reasons: I wasn't around at the computer when it all played out. After that, I think it was 5:30. It started to sell off, and then it got some. It did get a lower high further on, about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So unfortunately, it wasn't there, but it did play out quite nice. Look, on the Aussie, we're looking for something weaker. So I'll just go over that. Might as well put up that now. You can see this is the key action, and we've got what I was looking at last night. You've got let me just clean it up. It's getting a bit move drawings done. So we've got a key level up here, and we've spoken about it a few times around the 70 zone. Let me just mark that up a bit more. And then we've got an inside level. Okay, and this is what coming into play. Just a bit below, say 69, 70. Right, so what you've got, this uptrend is still intact. I mean, depending on where you're taking your trend line from, still intact. Okay, I think it was from about here. Might have to go out a bit more. Yeah, that was sort of this inside level here. If you take it through there, that trend line is still intact. And it depends where you put it. But what we're essentially looking at is this heavy action. You want to see if it can break down, and the level that really could trigger quite a big wave of selling will be through down here at about 70, 67, 90 or thereabouts. So if we start to break down, I mean, I've got quite a conservative rising support there. If it does break down, touch this level, it's broken out of that, and it's probably broken out of most, rising support, if not already. And if you start to take it from this low, and you come across that level there, then you are broken, and we're starting to get some heavy action. Now you've got we call this a retest fail. Okay, you got up to the high, it's pulled back, had another go, took out some of these lower highs, retest fail there, and we're starting to head over. So what I'd be looking for here, really, I wouldn't mind seeing it go through, and then maybe some action higher, and then getting that lower high come into play. I mean, it doesn't have to be sort of a head and shoulders type, but I like that sort of two-legged correction up. So generally against the trend, you got that thrust down, two legs up, and then you get the second wave, that next wave of selling, because generally they'll come in two waves. That makes sense. So once you get that hard selling, you get a bit of a pullback, and you're looking for that second wave of selling, and that's where you're looking for that shoulder. Okay, so once that breaks, especially if it breaks this level, now if it does it inside, you're taking a punt. I mean, it'll be lower risk, but lower risk on your trade if you've got something like this, but there's a chance that it could fall short. I know that's messy, but it could fall short in this support zone. Okay, you might stop short and bounce back up again, but still you could get something in your you could get up on the trade. So we'll look at that. Keep an eye on the Aussie. I know we missed this little short through here, but it hasn't, we're on the 2-hourly chart. It hasn't really finished yet in my book, especially if we get a lot of weakness. Now, the dollar index, which we've been talking about, that bounce off this zone, it played out beautifully. We've got a high low here and we've got that extension up. All right, so it's really, we're trying to question where to from here. We've got a zone here which could react down off and then see what happens, and we might get a bit of a bounce in the equity. Well, we will get a bit of a bounce. I think the US dollar starts to back off. It means that exiting the safe haven is not so much concern the back into equities. So we'll look at that. Otherwise, you're looking, further up to this territory. Okay, but we'll see if we can get a trade off there. That's the dollar index. We've gone over the Aussie, Euro. Not much to say. Same sort of action. You've got this double top retest fail. So you got retest fail here, backed off, come all the way back up. So the fact that it's come all the way back off this, not a key support zone, but it's pushed down. We found the bid in here around 111.85, come all the way back up. So all this leg is broken, and then we've got this lower high coming into place. The same sort of action as the Aussie. You've got, this is what we're looking at for any trade. You've got that retest fail, major retest fail up here. Second leg, once it starts to fail, you're looking for your lower high. Simple as that. And that's off, again, your key zone. So this is all in anticipation of weakness strength into the US dollar that we spoke about yesterday. Gold, I want to touch on. Gold is, look, that trend up is still intact. Got inside level here. It's pumped up through, that was it 1675, 1765, a bit dyslexic there, 1675 highs. Now, if we get something along the lines, of a push down, and then we get, move back up into the zone, and then we start to fail, that's what I'd be concerned about. Okay, that sort of thing. Once a deeper correction leads me to believe there's going to be some negative action to come. What you shouldn't see is if you get these anchor levels. Say we talk about anchors all the time. Anchor to your trend up. You shouldn't get a pullback to the anchor, basically, or you don't really want to see that because that's a deep correction. To me, that leads me to believe there's going to be a lower high coming to play. A lot of the times in the shorter term, it may do that, okay, but on a major, major market like that, you shouldn't really get all this big pullback. And then last thing you want to see is a grind higher again. A grind higher means there's no real conviction in the buying, and sellers are still coming in. So that's a big flush of that high in that respect. Otherwise, if we can hold in here and just start to chop around in here, great. Then we're heading higher on gold. That's all good. We've got Aussie gold. It's what we're looking at for the Aussie miners. That actually went up okay last night. I think it did go up, what, $10 or so, when gold was actually down slightly. I think gold was down 10 in US dollar terms, in Aussie dollar terms, thanks to the back off in Aussie. Gold was actually higher. Aussie gold was higher. So that's good. That trend up is still intact. No problems. Now, if the Aussie keeps sinking today, if we get a bit more pressure in the Aussie, expect that to pump up. We've got, while I was here on the commodities, I want to go over your copper and crude. Crude backed off, which we do expect. On every time the market's got a big enough sell-off, you're going to get demand concerns. And that's what you saw there. You saw the market originally, I think, pulled back the night before, consolidated, and went lower again. So you get these lower highs coming into play. And, when you're looking at things like this is why you don't buy the break. Especially in professionally traded commodities, indices, things like that, you don't really want to buy the break there. You want to buy on confirmation of a higher low. So if you're looking to buy crude, for example, you want to see it pull back, you want to see a high low go, and then you want to buy into it because you can get caught with these washes. And it happens time and time again in the markets. We've got obviously a lower high there. We've got this little high low coming into place here. You've got this push up, take a few stops, and then reverse. Okay, and we sort of did the same, close to the same action here. We pushed down, popped up, pushed down, took out this low, had to reverse just to get up more steam. And what that's doing is just churning a few traders and then clean out any of these sellers, and then bang, straight back down again. So you can see, I don't want that. So you can see that market sold off with respect to what was happening in equity markets. If we go over to copper, which is another linked market we've been discussing, that was a bit weird. You've got the US dollar was going up this whole time, so not necessarily US dollar pressure. I mean, US dollar moving high is going to put pressure on copper. The same with crude, same with gold, commodities. In US dollar terms, it's getting more expensive, so it would suck out some of the demand you would expect anyway. So that's the theory behind it, whether I'm right or wrong. But you've got the market pulled back. We had a bit of a flush lower, big spike up. Even though the US dollar was rallying, at this stage, it was actually chopping higher. It was grinding higher. That big spike, so it was just a big flush. I think a big ramp up to attack that high, and then it come, falling down again. But either way, if that's the case, and we're going to get this kind of action, I would expect some more heavy action down the track, because what you're looking, this zone is to be that lower high that we were talking about. Essentially, you got your retest fail up here, or your double top, you want to call it, followed by your lower high. MAs are down, the momentum's down, everything's in place for me on copper to move lower. I mean, it might be held up here, we don't know. And the only reason I'm thinking it could be held up is because of that action there. Somebody wanted to just keep that buying pressure up. So we'll see. Aussie gold, you can probably trade it as a CFD. You can trade it as a currency on Aussie gold, I'd say. A lot of the, I know we have Trade Direct, which actually I'm pretty sure has it. But if not, you can trade it just in as a pure currency as well. Now, where are we? So if we just go over to the indices now, we'll just see this sell-off. This is the Dow. You can see it gap down on the open and just continue to sell. So it's taken out, it was targeting these inside levels, this inside low that was holding up the market. You've got that pop up. So that was a big sell-off. Pop up was trying to go. I actually thought it was going to go, to be honest. I thought we are just going to jam up through this zone and start attacking these highs at 27.5. But the market, there's just more and more negative news coming out. I think last night, the reason why Europe started selling off is because, again, they're talking about tariffs on the EU, which is going to affect that. And that's why, obviously, the EU is not happy about that. DAX traders and European traders, just that's it, sell off. It triggered that big wave of selling into the major commodities into major indices. Markets jammed down. So once the US actually opened, it was consolidating a bit on the, you can see here, this time, this was about 11:30, yep, 11 o'clock bar, 11:30 bar, that's when it opened. So the market was sort of consolidating, that move down through the European session, consolidating, retest this inside lower high, and the trend is still down. We've spoken about this quite a few times. Retest, fail, and down we go. So there was some shorts in play there. You can see the MA is definitely down. The longer term, this is a 200, I think, 150 or 200 MA, rolling over. Okay, so once you get that sort of, we call it, we want to go from contraction to expansion. You've got contraction up, starting to hold at a key level. The same here, so it's sort of that contraction up, expansion, contraction, expansion. You want to be trading and be able to identify expansion. All right, so that's the markets, the S&P, not much different. Open lower, press lower through these inside levels, and then so from here, there's a chance that we could still. This is sort of the key level you'd be watching at the moment. Whether we do get it's a bit extended and we do get a bit of back and fill up to that level, and then retest this breakout zone at about 30.86, and then jam lower, and we start to, if that's the case, we get some something like this back up here, then just watch for those short-term lower highs to come in place, and then I would expect that something down to this level, even lower. I mean, that's where things, if they start getting out of hand with regards to fear and the sell-off, that's where you could see much bigger moves on the downside. 700 points in the scheme of things is probably not that big. We had 1,800 not long ago when we just really got hit. I think it was actually during this period, that 1,800 point move off the previous close. So 700 points, it's a lot, but it's what's happening in the volatility in the market sentiment, it may not be that much. So this could just be a bit of a sucker's drop, and then we find it starts to jam back up and edge its way all the way back up. We don't know just yet. We want to see more action, and that's what I'm anticipating. Again, if it starts to grind and you get a bit grindy on the upside, then be careful that we're not going to have another bout of selling, because there's not much to be proud of. The IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, they cut growth, cut output for this year and next. So they had back in about, I think it was March, April, they put out certain figures. It's going to grow at a certain rate. They've had to cut that right back because of the pandemic. And once they got more data in from companies, corporations, and things like that, more economic data in, they've had to reduce that growth. So things are not quite as rosy as what we expect. And maybe there's quite a lot factored in on coming out of lockdown, expecting to get back to the norm. Don't think we're going to get there. Corporations are already talking about having to cut back because there's going to be a drag on growth. Doesn't matter where we come out of lockdown. I think there's going to be some major cutbacks, and that's going to get that, I would expect, second wave of selling. I think we're sort of potentially we're getting the bulls coming to terms with it at the moment. If they come to terms with it and they look like they're going to sell, try to book some gains, then we get a big flush lower. All right, that's it from me. I think I've covered most. Back on again tomorrow at 9:40. Any questions, feel free to give us a call. Sorry. Or you can give us a call. I've got a mobile number linked to Trade Setup. Otherwise, just shoot us an email to support@tradesetup.com.au. And we'll be back on tomorrow. Good luck today, guys. Have a great day, and we'll be speaking to you soon.